Hey, yo, what's up, guys? We're back today to have a chat with some friends, man. Why not? We like to talk. We like to hear what's up with people, and we've got an influent and important member of the MMA community in Canada, the one, the only, Dylan James Bowker. How you doing, my guy?
Oh, that's quite the intro, man. I mean, appreciate the time. And yeah, no, similar sentiment to you. I love what you do and everything. So great to chat a little bit today.
Thank you so much, man. It's really appreciated. It's a new year. It's a new time for all of us, and I think you wanted to come on and talk about some exciting stuff going on. So the floor is yours, man. What are you up to?
Yeah, well, I've always really enjoyed covering the Canadian MMA scene as you yourself have, and just have been in kind of a bit of a spot lately trying to figure out a good lane for it and just wanted to, start my own project off the ground. It's called MMA Canada and really looking to create some like initial fundraising for it so far or sponsorship dynamics depending on where people are at and what they're looking for. But yeah, just to say that I've always enjoyed really spotlighting Canadian talent, and it had kind of gotten to a point where I was like, you know what, maybe I should get my own platform going because I've had the great privilege of being able to write for other outlets over the years like MMA Empire and other outlets that really did a lot of great stuff for the Canadian regional scene. But yeah, it just seemed kind of like the time to kick that off. And yeah, MMA Canada looking to get that rolling out early on in the new year.
Hell yeah, man. We need that, honestly, because probably you can tell us more about that. But like MMA Empire, like what the hell happened with that? Like that was kind of my number one source because I like to follow stuff, but there's just stuff that I can't follow, man. There's too much. There can't be one guy basically who does it. So I always relied on them pretty heavily for like all the very niche Canadian fights that were happening places that like sometimes we've got fighters who are fighting elsewhere, but I just like miss it on Instagram and then it popped on MMA Empire and it was my source and it's been kind of quiet for a year or two now. So that I was wondering about that. Do you have some insight on what happened?
Honestly, man, I wish I had more insights. I feel like what you know is probably pretty close to about what I know. And I don't really feel a particular way about that. It's just kind of like a uncertain sentiment more so. But yeah, no, I'd reached out to Joel a while ago, kind of just seeing what the deal was because at like an initial point, I was kind of noticing that inactivity and was just sort of like, oh, okay, like are things still going? Like have things changed a little bit? Do you know like what the deal is now? And just yeah, never really heard back. But yeah, again, not saying it in any kind of way. It's just more of like an uncertainty based kind of thing than me like casting aspersions or anything of that sort. But yeah, I mean, I wish I had a better answer, but just as uncertain as a lot of people, I feel.
Yeah. Now, sometimes life just happens to. It's just you need to do stuff sometimes that maybe prevents you from doing other stuff. So, like, I don't really have much insight either, but like sometimes I just feel like these things come and go, and like we've had Andy doing kind of a comeback last year too. MMA Andy was an awesome guy, like one of the best guy you're ever gonna meet. So I was pretty happy to see him get involved, and now to see you get even more involved because, like you said, you've been writing for pretty much every platform that ever existed. You wrote for so many different places, but now to have you on your own your own project, your own stuff, that's really exciting. So, like, in what form do you think this is going to materialize? Is it like more of a website thing, a social media thing, YouTube channel thing, all the above?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make it as much of a multimedia outlet as I can. Like, I very much want to continue with the writing, but yeah, looking to get audio based content out there, some videos. I feel like that's kind of a benefit of having done this over the years too, is I kind of have like a bit of experience in all of these different regards and just, yeah, no, want to bring that more to the table and everything like that. And I would be doing it through a website that I kind of got going with earlier on, like even before I really got a lot of the other writing gigs that I did. It's a site called Liberty Multimedia. And part of the reason why I also thought it would be good to have MMA Canada on that platform is I'm actually going to be putting out a Canadian MMA history book at some point next year. And it's going to be released through that platform. So I thought it would be like a logical lead in to kind of continue that Canadian MMA content, like leading into the result of, or the release rather, of the book, and then obviously continue MMA Canada thereafter. But just thought it made sense in that regard as like a platform, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, the book, that's exciting, man. I can't wait to read that, because I'm I don't want to say like I've been watching MMA for a while. It's I think I can really say I became a hardcore fan back. Of course, I'm from Quebec, so back in the GSP era, close
Yeah.
to the end of the GSP era too. Like I used to work at a restaurant, and then I switched to another restaurant, but that was like the restaurant in town that was showing the UFC fights. So I started watching
Yeah.
like after work, and then I found out about like Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, all these guys. But when I really got into the local scene was when TKO came back in 2016, I believe, end of 2016. So that's when I really like discovered that, oh yeah, there's like plenty promotions in Canada that you can watch pretty easily, and like get acquainted with the fighters and everything. But yeah, before that, like I've rewatched like the TKO shows on the Fight Pass here and there, but I'd be like super interested to learn more about like all the history and everything, because I'm sure that there's a lots of parts that I don't even know about. So that's super exciting, man, to hear.
Well, that was kind of a cool thing about it for me as well, because I guess to give a sense of a timeline of when all this took place, this was kind of like my stay busy project at like the beginning of the pandemic, because everything just halted entirely. So I was like, oh, I need something to do though. Like I want to sink my teeth into something and still, I guess, be creative in some kind of regard. But yeah, that just represented something that I could do. I'm like, okay, history, like what has happened so far, it's kind of an inert thing. And just with how the landscape is with like no upcoming events, and people are sitting at home too. So it kind of serves that master as well. Like I'm reaching out to people and it's like, oh yeah, you got free time in your schedule. It's like, oh yeah, a little bit more than I'm used to. So it did kind of work out in a certain sense. But like one of the cool things about the book was that it was just how much I learned from it. I mean, just hearing the stories of the guys who were there, you know, creating the history, all these different anecdotes I had no idea about prior to them mentioning it. So yeah, no, really excited to finally get it out there. There's been like a couple hurdles, obviously pandemic related and etc. since then. But yeah, looking like getting it out next year. I'm hoping for second quarter next year at some point, but definitely a 2024 release for the book. Yeah.
That's super exciting, man. Let us know when it's out, so we'll post all the links for the people to buy and everything, because it's gonna be an important piece. So yes, you were talking about financing or sponsorship. So what are you looking for? Like, do you have something set up right now, or?
Yeah, well, that's kind of an interesting sort of part of the journey too, because for a while, I always, I don't know, like maybe felt a certain type of way about like getting out there into like a crowdfunding kind of dynamic. I just want to offer something to people that they want to, you know, put that into. And like what I'm trying to do is like, because I have a PayPal thing set up. It's dylan.boker478@gmail.com. And then there's like an MMA Canada fundraiser page set up. And yeah, if people are having a time finding it, they can reach out to me on Instagram, Dylan James Bowker, or any other platform, Dylan Bowker, and can hook you up with that. But yeah, it kind of is just a bit of a reality of the situation as far as like being able to sustain and, you know, keep doing it, because as much as I have my hand in some other things as well, like I really do want to prioritize that Canadian MMA coverage. And it does get to a point where it's kind of like, okay, it feels like not the onus is on me per se, but just I want to create an entity that like people feel passionate about supporting and showing that kind of coverage that, you know, people are looking to see. Because anecdotally, I do see that sometimes on some social media platforms where people are like, oh, well, you know, why isn't this being covered, or why isn't there the information out there for this event or that event, et cetera, et cetera. It's like one of the realities of this is that money is required to have that kind of coverage, to be at these places, to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm just trying to create a platform like that to show the coverage that people are really yearning to see with Canadian MMA, because I do know a lot of people are, you know, very passionate about the scene. And I mean, it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be like any particular amount necessarily. As far as I'm concerned, any donation at any juncture, regardless of how big it may be, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's like we're part of this collective effort together. And I mean, as part of like the perks and stuff like that, I don't have like set up perks necessarily for each donation, but I wanted to have it more open-ended like that to, I guess, create a dialogue with certain people. Like if you donate to the effort, it's like, I want to show and represent the kind of coverage you're looking to see. Like by virtue of your donation, I'm looking to provide you with something that's, you know, commensurate with like what you want to see and with what you're donating, etc. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like any effort helps, and just, I mean, donations are great, obviously, and fuel it. If anyone is interested in an outright sponsorship effort, that's also something that very much open towards as well. So yeah.
Yep. For those who are looking for it, it's basically the first link in Dylan's link tree on his Instagram. So you're gonna be able to find it pretty easily from there. And I feel you so much on that, man. I like. It's been years that I was like wondering, should I like start a Patreon or something like that, or because like we put a lot of time in this stuff, like it or not, that's what we do. And like you said, it costs so much. Even just being at home and trying to watch all the Canadian MMA events, it's gonna cost you some money, because like there are some promotions that are like amazing and that will provide you with free codes to watch the pay-per-view of their event or whatever, but there's some that won't, and there's some that can't. Basically, I know there's some like for those who stream on Fight, the app Fight, it's really tough to get codes from Fight to then distribute back to the people who want to watch the event, or you want to give the event for free or whatever. So yeah, just being home and watching all the events, like it's gonna cost you 40 to 80 bucks a month. And if you want to go out there, like just right now, I'm going to the Unified event. So we'll be driving from Montreal to Toronto. I had to get an Airbnb, I guess. So it's a lot of money that we really spend on that. And yeah, we do it by passion and everything, but like there's absolutely no return, like whatsoever. And it makes it tough. I think that it's probably one of the main reasons why people stop like covering Canadian MMA, because it's easy to put a lot of money into it and to try to make it look as good as you can make it look. But it's tough to get money in return. Like if you got a YouTube channel, you can get some ads at a point, but like you're not gonna make that much ad money unless you're getting millions and millions of views, which is like not what's gonna happen if you're covering like a niche sport within a country. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's really tough, and I always like hesitated to, because I'm like, man, I never, like you're probably the same as me. We don't really come from a generation where we used to pay for this stuff. Like I used to read all my news when I was younger, like on the internet, on websites for free, and I'm like, I never got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna charge people for that. You know, it's always been tough for me to cross that step, but but we need it so much. Like we need it so much, man. So yeah, I was kind of rambling there, but like I feel you on the point that like he never really would like knew if you wanted to get into like some crowdfunding or whatever. It's like a tough jump to make, but I feel like the people are generous. At the times that I really asked stuff out of people that were following me, they always like collaborated with me, like whether it was sharing some stuff or participating in an MMA pool or whatever the fuck, man. The people are pretty cool, and they tend to appreciate what we're doing in the end.
Yeah, well, that's just what it is. Like, I very much do want to continue, you know, covering the scene and being there for that live coverage. It does almost have to exist in a grassroots kind of way, or at least like reaching out to kind of create like some semblance, which is kind of why I thought to, you know, even reach out to you, because I know you're a platform that, you know, connects with like the MMA Canada fan base out there and stuff like that, the people that follow this great sport in our country. So Yeah, I mean, it just has to be like a very grassroots sort of effort at this point. And as far as like people who even just enjoy seeing the Canadian MMA scene, like I said, if more of like a sponsorship kind of dynamic wants to come through, that's something I'd be willing to entertain also. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm not being obtuse to the fact that it's something that's an individual effort of mine that I'm wanting to do, but I just have seen over the last like year, a couple of years, I mean, I guess however long it's been since we've kind of been back to having events since like the COVID restrictions in Canada and stuff like that. It's like there are people out there who are really, looking for that kind of coverage. And like there are people doing things right now, but I don't know. I guess my big like pie in the sky kind of dream is almost having like a collective of people almost like us, like some of the people who really cover the scene consistently, and then maybe have it as an entity that, everybody can collaborate on, just wanting it to be, I guess, like a collective effort amongst like not just the content creators, but the people who are like, taking in the content and stuff like that. And just, yeah, having that kind of regional coverage that, people deserve, frankly, because I feel like we're poised for another boom period. I mean, maybe in a localized way, I'm looking at that with like the unified Toronto card and then like the UFC card the next day in Toronto. And it seems like they're looking to expand their schedule, but I don't know. It's a sentiment that I can resonate with. And I feel like a lot of the fighters are feeling like we're on the precipice of like a boom period for the sport. So just seems like a good time in that sense also.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. It's like we're back in a big way. I felt that last year, and then I was in Vancouver for the UFC event, which like was not a good event, like by every measurable standard. Before it happened, was not a good event, like not a good pay-per-view, not a very stacked card. But I don't know, there was a feeling in the arena that night, and Canadians just started winning, and then Charles Oliveira comes out, and it just turns out to be one of the best events of the year by UFC standards. And like everybody wins, and now you see Mike Malott fighting for a ranking spot. You see Charles Jourdain finally getting up the ranks. You see Marc-André Barriault fighting for a ranking spot in Toronto, and like Unified, they're killing it. BFL are doing super well in the West Coast, and Samurai in Quebec, like they just been there for 2 years, and they're already putting on like huge Carl Prepolek fights, Michael Dufort, and all these different promotions. They got a crop of very, very good prospects. And I feel like all these guys are gonna do something in MMA, being like the Tisha Gauchos, Cody Chovancheks. In Quebec, we've got Jonathan Ramsey, Tommy Morrison. Both Laramie brothers got like so much MMA left in them. Tony can be so good if they finally give him the chance to be there. James Clark, like so many guys that are there and that could sign with a major promotion tomorrow, but we still have the chance to see them fight here locally, because like the level has risen up to a point where people are good and they're tested, and when they get to the UFC, they're winning fights. We're not just sending people there and they get whooped and they come back to the regional scene. So yeah, I feel you. There's like a huge boom period right now, and I feel like it's all like coming together right now. But it's been an effort for years by many people, by many gyms. Like I feel like we have to give our flowers to these people, being like the TriStar people in Montreal, the whole like Toronto, Burlington, Niagara Falls area, like of people training together, like Niagara Top Team, Aegis, House of Champions, like so many good people coming out of these camps. And same thing with like Shave Bears in Alberta, the Tanner Bozer crew and everything. Is just, I don't know, man. We see new prospects every year that come out and they got 2 or 3 pro fights, and you're like, wow, man, how good is this guy at 3 pro fights? It's becoming crazy, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I mean, we have these different like territorial organizations, as you were kind of outlining there, which is great to see and kind of illustrates the scene too. I mean, like there's like Samurai MMA. They've been doing great stuff. I'd love to get out there and check out one of those shows. Like Fight League Atlantic is doing great stuff for the East Coast as well. And I mean, as much as it's cool to also see the compartmentalized, like, territory specific kind of fight promotion, like there is something also cool about seeing a unified try to like have more of a national expansion, like with some of their forays into the Ontario market, like obviously predominantly being based in Alberta, but having done shows in Toronto and Ottawa and whatnot. So yeah, it just seems like a rich landscape, even in like the regional kind of sense. And you outlined it well earlier there too. It really rewards the fans for coming to these kind of shows because you see early on glimpses of these guys and just like the brilliance that they obviously have. And I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this, but like some shows you look back on years ago and it's like, oh yeah, this person fought on the card and then this guy fought on the card, et cetera, et cetera. And just to see their respective journeys, it's really just incredible. So yeah, I would love to, I guess, like expose more people, to that and kind of.
Yep, you just remind me of that. I was in Quebec City and I went to train like at the Nordic Fight Club, and there was a poster there of an old event, LAMMQ, which was called back in the days, and like the lineup, man, it was all on the poster. It was insane. Like it was insane. I think it was the night Charles Jourdain fought for the first time as a pro. You had like Marc-André Barrio, all the known Quebec guys, from Jonathan Meunier was on the event. There was Strania Gavrilovic on the event. Like the lineup was just crazy. And I was telling my friend Greg, who helps me out with the French podcast, like, man, do you realize that all these people, like 5-10 years later, they're like known people that we've been watching for years, and that's what's gonna happen now with these samurai cars and these unified cars. Like when we're gonna look back in 5 years, we're gonna say, I can't believe we had this guy, and this guy fighting on the same event. Now they're like hugely popular UFC fighters that you get to fight, like see fight with once or twice a year in big fights or whatever. But yeah, man, it's very exciting. And since I have you there, man, I wanted to know what was your like we don't need to get into huge details or whatever, but just quickly, what was your favorite stuff that happened last year in Canadian MMA? Like, so maybe some fights, some knockouts, some like whatever, some moments. What was like just quickly like that, your favorite stuff that took place last year?
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I guess like the first thing that comes to mind, probably just because of the recency with which I viewed it. I mean, I was really impressed with that last unified card that they did. Just a very impressive finish by Shane Campbell there over Daryl Horcher. That Jake Craig finish was something out of a video game. I mean, that was a wild knockout to say the very least. Tom O'Connor, another great performance over an exemplary guy like, Craig Shintani, great grappling game. And I mean, a well-rounded game overall, but just in the sense of like Tom O'Connor overcoming some of the early, grappling adversities and just doing what he does, just putting that pace on guys and really weaponizing the cardio. And I mean, I guess in terms of like a recent example, that does stand out to me. But I mean, there have been some great efforts, man. Like a couple of them I unfortunately wasn't around for, in the sense of I was in Brazil for a period of time last year, but still looking in and seeing what was going on. Like PFC did some great shows at Rebel. I mean, we're about to see another upcoming Rebel nightclub show, so I guess fair to mention in that sense. But yeah, I love what BTC does. You mentioned BFL earlier, and I mean, yeah, it's just kind of an embarrassment of riches almost at this point. I mean, I guess I say this from the perspective of like an Ontario guy too. It's like, not only was the legalization not even really that long ago, but there was even a period of time for a few years where it just seemed like, I don't know, promotions were like almost de-incentivized from putting on shows. It was just like a little too much in certain regards. There was too many machinations to it to kind of discourage it. So, I mean, just seeing how the landscape is now and seeing people do things and put on these shows, it really is just incredible. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there really was a lot to enjoy in Canadian MMA the last year for sure. Is there anything that like stands out to you or anything you were thinking of in that regard?
Yeah, well, of course, being very close, because I do the commentary for Samurai, so I'm always there for the shows, and like it's gonna be those who stand out the most for me, because I get to be like so like even closer to the action than I'm usually, which is like pretty close to the action, because every time like Unified, they treat me so well. When I go there, they give me access to everything, and like every show that I go BTC, I've been to plenty BTC shows. The one that I haven't got to see live yet, and that saddens me because it's one of my favorite promotions. It's Prospects. Prospects is very good. They put on some amazing shows. But yeah, uh, for my part, really like the emergence of Jonathan Ramsey and Tommy Morrison in Quebec. Like they're two in their own way very special kids that like you want to hear from them, you want to be around them. They got something magnetic about them. So that really stood out. The fact that they're so active, that they Ramsey was able to win a belt. He's now 6-0. Tommy is probably about to fight for a belt. He's 5-0. So to have that Quebec talent to really rise up, and that we know that these guys are gonna amount to something. Like, so that's very exciting. Uh, on a more personal note, Michael Dufort going in a like little USA tour and just beating some ex UFC guys by submission in a minute or two. That was pretty exciting. But Michael Dufort is from my hometown, and he's like one of the reasons why I started training jiu-jitsu, which is my jiu-jitsu anniversary right now. It's been 9 years. I started in 2015, so it's because of him that
Nice.
I kept doing jiu-jitsu for all that time. So he's one of my good friends. So seeing him beat UFC level opponents, it's pretty exciting, and I hope that he's gonna be able to replace the Canadian gangster in the PFL and maybe win $1 million. Of course, Oli in the PFL, that's another huge one for me. The guy just did it his way, and his way is the most special way that there is, because the guy is like a once in a lifetime character. He's amazing, and just going there, and like the Shane Burgos fight was especially sweet because of the way that Shane Burgos fought against Charles Jourdain in the UFC, which was supposed to be an amazing fight, was a kind of a boring fight until round 3 when Jourdain went absolutely crazy on him. And it was boring because of Shane Burgos, who is known to be one of the best action fighters there is, but like he kind of turned into a grappler against Jourdain, and then bails from the UFC, goes to the PFL, and gets backpacked by Oli for 15 minutes in like the most frustrating way possible. And at the end of the fight, he's like super mad because he got backpacked, which is so ironic because Jourdain was super mad at the end of their fight because like Burgos used that strategy to defeat him. So that was a sweet little moment. And just the way that he won, and like he addressed like people from Quebec in French before, like he kind of basically told us he was retiring. Then he announced his retirement in English. So that was pretty sweet. And there was one crazy BFL show the day before the UFC in Vancouver, which gives me a lot of hope for that upcoming unified event, because like the BFL shows, they always deliver, but the way that every fighter came out that night, like they knew that the UFC was watching, it gave for a very, very special event that night in Vancouver. So I can't wait to be there and to see the first BFL event too, because I'll be in Vancouver for that event too. I kind of made Vancouver my favorite place in the world, like in the last 2 years. So every chance I get to go there and just hang out, I got family over there, so it's just a cool opportunity. So yeah, and like I said, just generally seeing how LT Canadian MMA is, because I can't speak for any other province, but in Quebec, it was bad during COVID, because just before COVID, there was kind of the death of TKO that was never really announced, but like he kind of, like, if you know, like he kind of pulled the same thing that he pulled the first time and disappeared on everybody. And like there was no MMA for more than a year. And then at a point where we're starting to hear rumblings here and there of maybe this guy wants to book a show next year, whatever, bang, pandemic hits, and like it's just dead for 2 more years. So to see how everything resume, how all the big promotions from before COVID were able to stay afloat and to present shows after COVID, and then to have a new promotion in Quebec who is thriving right now, that's really the biggest thing for me, to see how LT everything is. And like I said, with the UFC people having success in the UFC, just rise the cream even higher, so that's what's exciting for me, because like, yeah, I love to cover that stuff, I love to watch that stuff, and Like the more that we have, the busier it keeps me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's interesting that you talk about those times because like just doing the transcriptions for this book, it keeps taking me back to that like earlier period in COVID. Like the bulk, I did some interviews outside of that bubble, obviously, but the bulk of the interviews I feel like were done within the first like 3 to 6 months of COVID. So and like I guess I personalized each individual interview to each person's story, obviously, but I had certain overarching questions to I guess create a thread through the interviews, and one of them was related to like, oh, where do you see the future of Canadian MMA going? And just because of how uncertain the landscape was back then, there was some answers that were a little on the bleak side, which understandable. They were more oriented to, I guess, realism. Like maybe bleak isn't the way to phrase it, but yeah, it's just interesting to see it even in that context too, because there were certain people that were understandably kind of concerned about where things would go, just because of the rampant uncertainty of the world, even beyond the MMA space. But just even in that sense, like really fires me up to see how vibrant the scene is nowadays, even in that context. So yeah, echoing the same sentiment for you there, man, because there was that. I mean, I guess I'm kind of an optimist to a fault. I guess I always kind of figured things would sort of fall back into place somehow eventually. But I do understand also that people had those thoughts and reservations and just the general uncertainties back then. So yeah, no, just good to see where things are at now. Seems like we're locked in and readying for, like I was saying before, just another boom period in the sport. So love to see that.
Yeah. No, it was a tough time because too on the social media side of thing, basically our the algorithm was absolutely messed up, because everybody were looking for COVID, searching for COVID, reading stuff on COVID, interacting on stuff about COVID. And
Yeah.
basically, there was no place anymore in the algorithm for anything that wasn't COVID related. So I had at that point a Facebook page with like more than 10K likes on it. And I'd get 5 to 10 likes on every post because, and like, it wasn't even like, oh, I get like some reach but no likes. Facebook would show my post to like 200 people basically, which is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. But like, I remember at that point, me and Greg, we just used to do podcasts live every day, and we wouldn't even talk about MMA most of the time. We'd just be there and hanging out with people because we had nothing better to do. But yeah, I remember a point where I was like, there's no MMA anymore except for like some weird UFC fights in the empty gym, which was amazing at the time. It became unsufferable since then, but at the time it was great. I really liked the experience. But yeah, I was like, damn, there's no local MMA anymore. Facebook pretty much killed my page off, which was some good foreshadowing because it ended up killing my page for real, like for absolutely no reason. I was live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was live for a fight and the live just shut off. I was like, okay, I don't know what happened. So I went to my email and they told me that my page was deleted for not respecting the standards of the community, which they never explained to me which standards or what I had done or whatever. But yeah, they just deleted my page with like 10,000 people on it. It was pretty nice. But yeah, I got a new one now. It's okay. We'll survive at that. Everybody that were basically already following my stuff, they found me pretty easily after I redid a page and everything. But yeah, it was a weird time, man. Even thinking back to, did you guys have a curfew in Ontario at a point, or you never got to that?
No, I remember that being a thing in Quebec at one point. I remember observing that as a thing that went on, but yeah, that was not a thing in Ontario. That was, yeah, I almost forgot about that. Wild times.
Yeah, man, we had a curfew at a point, and I was like, man, it's like I haven't even done anything bad to be stuck at, like, it's like you're on house arrest, but like you haven't like committed a crime to be on house arrest. It was just like the worst feeling ever. And like I worked night shifts already back then, so I used to get pulled over every night, because I gotta go through like the downtown area in my city to get to my job from where I live.
Yeah.
And of course the downtown area is the place where there's like more police activity. So I used to cross a police officer every night, because like there was one car on the streets, me, and all the other cars on the streets were police officers looking for people not respecting the curfew. But like, of course, like my work, they provided me with like a document basically that I could give to the police officer saying, "Hey, I'm going to work at that place. You can call them if you want." But yeah, I used to get pulled over every night. Basically, every night that I was working, I'd get outside and drive past curfew time and get pulled over by a police officer, thinking that he just had me and that he was about to give me a $1,000 ticket. Man, that was the price of the ticket if you got caught outside of your home. $1,000. But yeah, man, that was bad. I'm so happy we're not we're not in that anymore, man. It's
Oh yeah.
crazy how, like, for a while, I was really like, it's never gonna come back to normal, and not like in the sense that we're gonna stay under a curfew and everything. But I'm like, there's some things that are not gonna come back like before. And honestly, like, except for like wearing masks in hospitals, I think everything pretty much came back to what it was before.
Yeah, no, I get that sense too. I felt like there was a bit of a period of people kind of coming out of it and getting readjusted, which kind of does make sense. But I do feel like that anecdotally as well. Like, it does feel like things are back to normal. And yeah, no, love to see that. I mean, there was certain times where it just seemed like, yeah, just so ridiculous. Like, it's like, where is this going to go? Like, are we progressing from where we were at? Are things getting worse? Like, you just didn't really know. There's just, you had question marks about literally everything. And like, you talk about the social media algorithms and stuff like that, just inundated by like a singular subject. And to be fair, I mean, I get why it would be a subject of a certain focus, but yeah, no, it was just a very like myopic, like everyone's focusing on the same stuff kind of situation. But no, it just, there's like a certain relief to it. Like, I remember when a lot of that stuff started kind of falling by the wayside, like, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it just felt like a relief. And then just seeing certain things come back that to me represented normalcy, like just seeing different events coming back, seeing different larger gatherings. Like, yeah, we need that stuff. It's essential to who we are. We're very social creatures. So yeah, it was a little difficult to say the least, like during certain periods of time. But yeah, I mean, you kind of form unique bonds around those points too. Like, you gravitate towards like certain people at the time. And I mean, things did sort of start popping up, but yeah, like you said, it would be those like empty warehouse kind of situations, or like people just flying to different countries to like get the fights in when they can. So yeah, good to see that things are a little more normalized and back to it now.
Yeah, I remember Ontario, where that was the first, well, not the first place, but for me, the first place where I could go watch some events, because Quebec, we kept on like, I think we were really the craziest with the measures and everything. So I went to a couple of BTC shows before I could go to an event in Canada, and it felt so relieving when I was there. I was just so happy seeing people and fucking being in public, man. It became weird for a while being in public, but then we were back. So yeah, man, that was a great talk, man. That was fun. So I'll let you I'll let you with the final word. You can say whatever you like, and then we'll just go on our way, and we'll keep each other posted. Anytime you got like something new, whatever, like, just hit me up. I'm always willing to share, to give some awareness to the people of what you're up to. I think it's really important. Like you said, we're a collective. I know sometimes it's not really like that here, I feel, but like, I know sometimes people, they're like, okay, I'm covering MMA and he's covering MMA, so we're kind of in competition. It's absolutely not the case. We're a community. We all love the sport. We all train. We all talk to fighters. We all like are so involved in that. So I think it's super important for all of us to be united, to collaborate as much as we can, and to share each other's stuff, and to make sure that all the people that are interested get to watch all the content, because everybody's gonna have a different take on everything, and that's what makes the beauty of things. So thanks a lot, man, for reaching out to me. And like I said, I leave you with the final word, my man.
Yeah, well, it's cool you perceive it like that, because that was kind of in my mind when I had reached out to you. And I mean, I did reach out to certain people, and not that I feel a way about it, but some people did kind of almost seem to have that interpretation of it being like a competitive sort of thing. Like, I guess I just look at it as like we're all ultimately doing the same thing. And like the reason partly that I'm reaching out to you, like, I mean, I've watched your work over the years and do enjoy it, but even in that sense, it's like I feel like it would be a good platform to kind of get the word out to other people. Like I feel like they would be also interested in, you know, what I'm doing. And kind of like what I was saying before, like ideally for me, MMA Canada would be something that can very much turn into like a viable commercial entity. Like that's admittedly a part of the game I've been definitely trying to refine over the years. But I mean, my like pie in the sky dream with it is I would love to have a collective and it be a money generating enterprise, and to have all of the, you know, like-minded great Canadian content creators who really spotlight MMA positively contributing to it. So yeah, I mean, like you were saying before, check me out on Instagram, Dylan James Bowker, the Linktree link in my bio, the first link, you can go to the fundraiser there. But I mean, even outside of a monetary donation, even just word of mouth, checking out an article, a video, etc., any kind of support really just means the world to me. I'm just in it the same reason that you're in it, and a lot of the people that watch your broadcasts are in it, just that love and appreciation for Canadian MMA. So yeah, that's about it, man. Just excited for MMA Canada to get off the ground, hoping MMA Talk has a big 2024. And yeah, no, definitely keep in touch and hope to see you at that Rebel show, man.
Yeah, of course, we're going to see each other there, man. Thanks a lot. And thanks to everybody who listened to us. It was a great talk, man. And I guess we'll speak next time, man. Anytime you got some on your mind, just hit me up and we can just talk.